So, racks. We have three types of racks. So you have audio effect tracks, you have instrument tracks, and you have MIDI effect tracks, basically. And this just tells you what fits into each of them. So if you have MIDI effects and you want to put them in a rack, it's a MIDI effect track. It's just basically the label that you would put on the rack. Maybe we can start with audio effect tracks. Let's say I have a reverb, and then let's say I have a limiter. Press Command G, then you group your effects. And now you have an audio effect track. Here you can see your chains. So for an example, you can add chains. Chains are kind of similar to having different tracks. So there's like the signal flow is that, let's say I have any chord thing, any sample. It's a very ugly chord. Ew. And the way what's happening right now is that the signal flow is going from the audio sample into the audio chains. So if you add more audio chains, it's going to be split. And then if you want to keep the same volume, then you will have to like have -3 dB on each of them. Then it goes into your mixer. And then it goes into whatever routing you have, which is here to the main. Just like the basic signal flow that happens inside of racks. And this lets you have, for an example, like the most simple use of this would be like parallel processing. So for an example, if you want like to add a filter, and then let's say I only want to process the highs, sorry, with some distortion. Let me add any random one. So the way that now this is happening, you can just solo stuff here. So the high signals are just getting distorted, but the reverb signal is not getting distorted. Maybe we can just like cut the highs off the thing, and then just have the combination of both. You can of course span them. Or this is basically just like the stereo balance between them. Also, there's a chain selector. This is kind of a very useful thing. Let's say you want to be switching between both. So what you can do is that this selects the chains that you're going to be using. So as you see now, I only get output out of the first one because my chain is only over one of them, and here I only get output out of the other one. What you can do is also, this is kind of like the things you can only find by accident, is that you see if you hover here you can change where the chain is. If you hover like 1 millimeter above it, where like this white line starts highlighting, you can fade it in. And if we just fade both in like this, then you can see only one, and then the other one fades in, and then it's only the second one. So this could be really useful in, let's say, very nice augmented chord. Oh, is this an Ableton Live clip? Oh, this is good that we have a clip also here. Maybe we can try both audio effect track and instrument track at the same time. Very nice augmented chord, and let's drag our effect chain here. We don't need this. There was, if you right click on this thing, I mean, it's gonna get overwhelming at some point, but then if you're careful with like renaming your stuff, like here, let's name this Muddy Reverb. And then if you're getting lost in like racks inside of racks, you can just right click on your like mini effect chain image here, and then you can search where is my Muddy Reverb, and then you just go right through it, right to it. And this might become handy in the future when we get like lost, if we're like having compound racks inside of each other. But as long as you keep like your stuff kind of clean, then you should be able to find your stuff. But for an example, if we go to so if we go to audio effects and let's go to more hybrid reverb. Anyways, so I just add different reverbs in different chains. So I don't know, this is enough. And then what you can do is you can right click here and you can distribute ranges equally. So what it will do, it will just spare you the time of going around and changing these stuff. And then this can be just different reverbs. You can just start changing between the, I mean, I think reverb is really not the best example for this thing, but you can have some really nice modulations like this. But if you're in an instrument effect, then you have both chain, but you also have velocity and key. So for an example now, let me play this. So we have this piano sound, but maybe let's say I want like, what do we have? Like, do I have something like this? Like any bass sound maybe? So I add it on a different chain and then I say that I want below this point to have, like after this point I'm having my piano play. And here I have my bass being played. It's just that based on what MIDI note is being played, it's gonna route to different instruments. So this MIDI basically only goes through this instrument, and the higher MIDI goes through the other instrument. What you can also do is base on velocity. So this you will find a lot in electric bass, yeah, this one. So you can see here how many chains they use because they use, it's like a sample instrument, so it's based on samples. So the way they do it is that if I play at normal velocity, you can check here the velocity range. If I'm playing at this velocity, then it's gonna play an open string. But if I play at much lower velocity, it's gonna play the dead sample basically. And if I play at much higher velocity, it's gonna play a slap bass. So you can kind of like get closer to the dynamics of, I mean, this sucks anyways, but this is a way to use it basically, of playing different samples. This is how you can like change the dynamics, or like change different samples based on the dynamics that you're playing. Other than that, you can map all of these, like if you're in your chain view, and let's say we are here. Okay, now we're gonna look at macros. This you probably seen everywhere. This is like the first thing you usually see in racks. Anything you right click inside of a rack, you can map to a macro. So let's say I map the chain selector to this macro, and then now it's chain selector. So now what I can do is I can add an LFO, and then I can modulate the chain selector. So now it's moving. And it sounds like it sounds. We're gonna look at LFOs a little bit later because they will prove to be handy here. But other than that, you can map multiple stuff to the same thing. For an example, oh, this is actually a very good place to show this. If you map, for example, the dry wet of all the reverbs to, let's say, macro 2. I think there was an option to map to all siblings. This makes that it knows that you're using reverbs in every chain, and it will map every reverb, every dry wet of every reverb to the same thing. So now you can see the dry and wet are actually changing for every reverb. because you chose this map to sibling. This is very handy, especially if you have like huge chains and you don't want to go like over each effect, and then especially if you're building like, okay, I want the size of everyone to be mapped to macro 3, and then also map to all siblings. So now, I mean, now of course we have like only one effect, but it's gonna be changing all of them. Let's say you have mapped all your nice stuff like decay to macro 4, and then let's do this. You just mapped a couple of things that you like. Now what you can do is you can go into this little camera icon, and these are your snapshots. And you can just add variations, basically by, you can change stuff. You say, okay, I really like, I like this sound, and then you see like this little a star. It means that something has changed in this preset, and then you have to click on the picture on the camera, and then it saves it. So now when I press this, it's gonna go to these values. Also, now you can go to the different one, and then let's say I like this one, and then you also snapshot it there, and then you can start switching between these two things. Cool thing also is that there's a random button, which is very helpful. It just randomizes all the values, and then you can also save it in another one. And then, yeah, this is pretty simple. Also, you can exclude macros from randomization and from variations. So let's say I want the decay to always be 16.4 seconds, so I would exclude that from randomization. So now when I randomize, everything changes except the decay, or whatever I choose to not be excluded. And also from variations, if you want it to not be changed by variations. What else is nice about variations? Oh, there's also a Max for Live that is called, I'll just guess that it's called variations. Smooth Automator. Found it. So yeah, it's also free. You can find it on everyone knows maxforlive.com. We talked about it in the also previous. So if you just go to maxforlive.com. So this website has a lot of Max for Live devices. The community is amazing. You can sort devices by whatever you want, like maybe we can look for it. So you can download Smooth Automator. And then, oh, this is it. Is this it? Maybe it's a new version. I don't know. And then either sometimes they put it for sale. Sometimes you can just download it. You just go to their Gumroad, and then and sometimes you find much more nicer things of people. But now it just like automatically knows your variations, and you can set to either move between them manually or move between them by time. So like, let's say I want to move every full bar, it's gonna move once. Maybe let's have it quicker. I think also, I don't remember, but I used to do something that I add another LFO, and then I map the LFO to this thing. Can you map it to it? No. You can. You just map the LFO to this automate, and now everything is 1 frame per second. Okay, maybe you shouldn't do that. Wow. Another shortcut is Command-Alt-Exit. And then you can force quit programs if you're on Mac. That's very nice. We can start over with something nicer. Maybe we can start with the shifter effect that I was talking about. So if we add shifter, if you don't know, is one of the nicer experimental effects of Ableton, which looks like just a pitch shifter, but it can do a lot of stuff actually. So we were talking last seminar about we have 3 file types in Ableton that we're going to be using a lot, which are Ableton Live clips and Ableton Live presets and Ableton device presets and Ableton device groups. So like if we want to share stuff with each other as, I don't know, like the projects you do at home or like everyone doing like sketches or whatever, and we put them on the drive, then we're not going to be sharing the whole session. But for an example, if you make a really nice shifter preset, I don't know, like this, and then you can just save it by pressing this floppy disk icon, and then it's just saved in your user library. You just say, okay, cool shifter, and then whenever you drag it anywhere, it's gonna be the same. But this is very like the most basic. Also, what you can do is if you group it and you have like 20 shifters, then you can also save, like if you see in the rack, there is also the same icon here, which saves as an audio effect track, which is the ADG format, and like cools shifters for plural. And then it also drags the same way. The more universal, like kind of the best thing, if you have also, for an example, I don't know, like drum loop, whatever you wanna. So you see them already. Like this is an ALC file format, which is Ableton Live clips, which when you drag anywhere, it keeps all the information of warping, of volume, of tempo, of every. Of course, if you drag it into a different tempo, like a different session with different tempo, it's not gonna register it. But you see, when I dragged it, because my project is empty, it automatically changed the project tempo to 75 because this is 75 BPM. Like the ALC is kind of like, it keeps all the information of everything, and even if I want to add, let's say, just any random stuff, like a shifter and then a reverb, and then you change your whatever thing you have here, this, and then if you save, if you right click, you can, actually you don't need to right click, you can just go to your user library and then you go wherever you want, and then you just drag it in, and then you call it shifter drum or whatever. And then if you drag it somewhere else, it's gonna keep also all the effect chain information. And so this, I think, is kind of like the best way of sharing stuff with each other. The only problem where this, the only place where this becomes a problem is where you're using effects or plugins or Max for Live devices that the other person doesn't have. So they either have to, you either have to send the device separately, or you have to send the whole session and make sure that you went here and pressed collect all and save, and made sure that all your files from your user library are in the saved project before you send it. But I think for our use cases, it's going to be pretty easy to do. So, shifters, racks, where were we? Let's group this again. Maybe here we can start also doing this together to see if we like get, yeah?
What was the keyboard shortcut?
For?
Rack.
Command G.
Command G.
To group. To group anything. Also, like if you want to group these two tracks, you also press Command G and it's a group. Okay, I'll take that. Overexcited. Might be good because we have multiple stuff, but oh, gong seems nice. We'll just like add random samples and see how our effect will change them. Hi-hats, very useful. Anyways, so what we're gonna do, maybe I'll add a normal shifter so we're all on the same page. So everyone added a shifter and grouped it in a track. Right, yeah? We don't need the chain for now, so we can just press here to hide the chains. What we're gonna need are the snapshots and the macros. Once you open the macros, also you have the option to add up to 16 macros. So this we're gonna also do because we're gonna need all of them. I guess, I don't know, we'll see how much we need. And now we're gonna add stuff that we think we can use to modulate. And what we're gonna do is map the chorus to the macro one. You can press the map button also and everything becomes greenish, whatever is actually mappable. And for example, you can map the fine to number 2, the wide to number 3. You don't have to do this exactly like I do, you can map whatever you like. The tone to number 5, delay type, oh no, just delay time. Maybe I'll just keep it without feedback, delay feedback. What else? Dry and wet, of course, we need this. And let's keep it like this for now. This, like with the shifter, it becomes a bit complicated because if you change to frequency mode or ring modulation mode, then it's like your stuff are gonna be changed. So like if I change to ring modulation, this is not mapped anymore because this was actually mapped to the pitch. Like this thing actually has 3 different knobs that are kind of on top of each other that you just see one of them every now and then, whatever, depending on which mode that you choose. The cool thing about tracks that is really, really helpful is that when you duplicate a shifter, oh wait, there's one more very important thing, is that we map the device on or off to another macro.
Yeah, okay.
Also, if you're on the new 12.1, there's a very cool, like, one of the coolest stuff they added is Command-Alt-Z and shows you all your undo history, which is so good. I like, and you can like immediately jump back to this one, and it's just gonna jump back to that place in your Command-Alt-Z. So the ones with the like the undo stuff is you have Command-Z to undo, Command-Shift-Z with redo, and Command-Alt-Z would show your undo history. So now maybe we can start thinking, of course, if you want, this is, I really recommend it if you start like programming racks and giving them to people, is to color your racks. It's very important. It really looks so good if you add colors and that they make sense. That if this is like very light purple, then this has to be dark purple. Now I don't think we're gonna use the rest of this, so I'm just gonna like make it a little bit more compact. So now maybe what we can do is we can decide what stuff do we want to have change and what stuff we don't want to have change. So I would say both this is nice to randomize and this is nice to randomize. The width is nice to randomize. No, this I will keep that it's always on. So I will remove this from randomization. And also, what's this pitch window? Let's keep this on. Tone. Wait, there's something wrong. Oh no, there's nothing wrong. Tone, we can. I'll also remove tone from randomization. This is basically like a kind of a filter. It just. So I don't want this to be all the way down that I'm not hearing my signal if it's really like high pitch. So I'll just keep it very high and remove it, like exclude it from randomization. Also with if the width is on and off, I want it to be wide all the time. Delay on or off, I'll keep it, we'll have nice stuff. And also here, I will change to milliseconds instead of, I mean, you don't have to do this exactly the same. I'm just like kind of now brainstorming what I would like to hear. Dry and wet, delay time. See, so now we did a mistake. So what I modulated was the delay time that is based on the quantized version, like 5/16, whatever. If you want the delay time to be this one, then you should also map it to the delay S time. You can still map multiple stuff to the same. So now this modulating both this and both this. So it works for this. You can also see always, if you press the map button, you can see the list of the stuff that you have mapped. And if you press on anything, it just highlights it for you. So it becomes really easy. Later, we're really going to need this, because if you like start mapping hundreds of stuff, then you're really going to, and also color mapping is also becomes really helpful. So you see what is mapped to which thing, especially when you have racks inside of racks. So maybe keep these two things in mind, like color mapping and also the map view here, the map list. Okay, so now we can try maybe create some variations. So I'll just like listen, how is this sounding? Of course, now this is a very simple shifter. The cool thing about shifter now is that it has this like feedback and delay. So you can find stuff that you like or don't like. We have the device on and it's modulating. We're also gonna exclude this from randomization. So the shifter is always on, basically. This is nice, actually. I'll add this to my collection. Anyways, now the real important thing, the real nice thing is that since you mapped all this stuff very carefully, if you duplicate your shifter, all the mappings are gonna stay. So now my course is modulating 2 shifters. And what I can do is I can just do 10 shifters. Or how many shifters do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. So that's a good thing. What I was thinking to do, like last week, I really had this idea that what would happen if I have my shifter be in pairs of shifters, that one shifts down and the other shifts up. So basically they're 2 shifters just canceling each other. Like one shifts 2 octaves down, the other shifts 2 octaves up. So we can try and do this by going into the map function. And we go into the, so first let's only have 2 shifters. Let's remove all the other ones. So we only have 2. So we're not very overwhelmed here. Because then we can just duplicate those 2 and then they can have their values like the same. Like if we want to change something that is specific to 2 at the same time. So I will have this oscillator, this pitch course be from -24 to +24. But this one, for the next one, I will have from +24 to -24. So now you can see if I change this, it's always going to be the opposite number. So if this is -15, this is +15. If this is +22, this is -22. So now basically these shifters are, you would suppose they're canceling each other, but then you get interesting effects that happen. The other thing that we can do if we remove this wide feature and we have fine tuning, so now it's also changing the send values, then we can also have the send values be the opposite directions. So now if I change my fine tuning, then you see +75 cents, -75 cents. -57, +57. It's always going to be the opposite value.
Why are they not canceling each other?
Because you have also other stuff. Like you have for example, let's turn off.
Just because we didn't do all of the, like if we would, every parameter that we map to the macro would be exactly the opposite, then they would cancel? But
Actually not. That's also the interesting thing, because they could be having a very minimal effect.
Okay.
And that's why we now are doing all this mapping, so we can grab this and duplicate it so many times. And this is now even though there is no, is there pitch change? There is no pitch change. It's going plus 17, minus 17, plus 17, minus 17, plus 17, minus 17, a lot of times. And I feel like it's really good to also merge, like now if it's like at 75% wet. And let's like turn everything off, like no delay. I think the pitch window really changes a lot, because the pitch window is how much it's analyzing the signal to pitch shift it. I think this is like, I'm not sure how the algorithms work inside of it, but I think usually higher pitch windows are better for lower frequency sounds, and lower pitch windows are better for higher frequency sounds. And just by changing how big the pitch window, even if, let's try something actually. If we put this as 64, now actually it's not even moving the sound. I mean, this we can also put at 64, so it's 0 cents and 0 semitones modulation, like it's not pitch shifting at all. And just with the pitch window, you can create already insane stuff. But this stuff actually wouldn't be this insane if it was only 2 shifters, I think. This thing start happening because we're kind of adding so much of the same effect. And the cool thing that we can do, let's say now that this effect that we created is a pair of 2 shifters that are after each other. So this is like, we can consider these 2 shifters our first effect basically, and then the second shifters are our second effect, etc. So what we can do, let's say we want 10 maybe, so we would duplicate both of them 4 more times. So this is 4, 6, 8, and 10. Now what we can do is you go to this device on that we mapped to turn everything off and on, and you click on map. This is very important. And now you can already see how big our mapping list has become because of all the things. But it's very good that it sorts them by, I mean, you can also change the sorting, but it sorts them by what they are. So like all pitch choruses are after each other, and all device ons are also after each other. So I go to the first device on, and then I say that I want it to be on after my value is 1. And also for the second one. And now you think we have 5 pairs of shifters. That means we have to kind of divide 127 by 5, so almost 25. So I would just here go maybe 25, 25. Is it?
Yeah.
No, it should be 33, right? I think 33. Let's try 33. It doesn't really matter that much. And then 64, 64 works.
That would be 4 with 30.
Yeah, but the first one is 1. It's not starting from 25, so I think you need to divide by 4. And then you would go something like, let's go 99, 99. And the last one can be just 100, like 26 or something, just so you have a little bit of space when you're moving it. You can have it also 127. So now what we basically told now the explanation. Oh wait, have I mapped something wrong? Oh, there's delay on. So now what we're telling Ableton to do is that this device on, now let's, you can also rename stuff, by the way, if you just press on the name and then Command R, then let's call this intensity. So basically now I've told Ableton that at each specific number of these values, something is gonna happen. So if you're at 0, so anything below 1, where are they? Let's find it again. So if you're anywhere below 1, all of them are going to be off, because here the values for each of them are, the minimum is lower than 1. So we start at 1. So At 0, you see here the value is 0, everything's turned off. As soon as we cross 1, one of them is going to turn on. Or like basically 2, so one pair is going to turn on, so these 2. And then as soon as we cross, so let's maybe turn this off. As soon as we cross 33, then the other 2 are going to turn on, and as soon as we cross 66, the other 2 are going to turn on. As soon as we cross, what is it, like 99, other 2 are going to turn on, and then full intensity is going to turn them all on. So like this, you can control how intense your intense effect is. So and maybe also let's exclude this from randomization. Cool, cool. And now you can just mess around with this. So like, let's have a couple of variations here. Very often you see that there's sound, but you don't see sound, especially because what is it called? Shifter sometimes produces sounds that I don't know why, but they're not audible. Sometimes it's very like sub audible range, and now it's just somehow coming into life, even though I didn't do anything. Oh, and the audio is paused also. This is usually because of very high delay times. So now we're not playing the audio, but it's just because there's some delay inside of it, and you can imagine the delay happening through 10 different shifters. So that's pretty interesting. Let's see. Let's see how it works with like a gong sound. Maybe let's lower the intensity a bit. This is funny. It's so funny. And you can just like keep on playing with this until you find stuff that you like or don't like, or see how it goes with drums. Anyways, you can get very... See you next week. You can get very weird stuff. You can get very interesting stuff also. Sorry?
Sounds like hyperpop.
I'll take this as a compliment. But I like hyperpop a lot. But also what I really like to do this, especially with stuff that have feedback in them, is that I like to take like an impulse of sound and not like continuous sound, and just run it through this and see what it comes up with after like a long time. But you need here to be careful that you have your delay on and a lot of feedback, and also delay time maybe a little bit less. Wow, that's a very nice score just out of a hi-hat. Oh no, I just commented.
That is Spectrum, right? Spectrum.
Spectrum? Oh, this is Spectrum, yes.
Yeah, cool.
And you can see, actually, it's really always shocks me how much sub-audio range happens in Shifter. It's always like so much here. I wonder if you like get a really huge sub bass, if you would feel that. It's funny. You can get actually very similar sounds with, okay, enough. You can get very similar sounds with multiplying a lot of choruses. So let's try to, I think I already have one. So let's see how this sounds on this single hi-hat. Interesting. So the idea with this other one was to actually have the same concept, but with chorus ensemble effect, what you can do is that you can flip the phase. So now instead of changing one is going down and one is going up, each two choruses will have their phase flip. So the first one has normal phase and the second one will have their phase flip. But this, of course, wouldn't really work in that very simple, straightforward, because it's actually going through all of them. So after the signal goes through this one, it's not going to be identical to what it was before, so its phase is going to be different. Its shape is even going to be different. But flipping this phase, also, I discovered that it makes you be able to add a lot of the effects, like duplicate it so many times without getting huge amounts of like volume peaks. Also, of course, if you want to do this crazy stuff where you're duplicating effects, which is not mandatory, like you could create any rack that you want, put limiters at the end, as much limiters as it takes, because you can really like immediately I had 13 dB above zero, like from this sound, and this is not, I think, I think I can get much louder stuff out of these effects, because you can imagine how much it's going through the same thing. Like, look here, that's just insane. Like, that's very much, don't, you use limiters. That's It's also sometimes annoying that you stop the session, but the audio just keeps going because it's just because of the feedback. You all know sidechain reverb? It's very simple. I don't know why do I have two reverbs. Doesn't matter. So what you would do is you have a hi-hat, and then you can create a different chain. This is your dry signal basically, and then you keep the also like the most basics use of audio effects racks is to use it as a dry wet knob, because I put a reverb here. Let's imagine I don't have this dry wet knob, and here nothing, so the signal goes, and then I can just use this volume as a dry wet for the reverb basically. So now we have a sound that is going through both a reverb and both going without anything, so raw. Now you can have a compressor after your reverb, and you activate your sidechain. You have the input from this chain. So basically you would choose here, so audio from, the first thing you see is which channel it's going through, which track, sorry. So it is 1R over excited, whatever. And then here you need to pick not the shifter racks and not the chorus racks, but sidechain reverb, and not the one that's called reverb, the one that's called chain. And if you have effects in it, you can post effects or post mixer even. So now what you see, now I have a huge release here. But now what's going to happen is the audio from this chain is going to this compressor first. And this compressor is compressing the reverb. So now you see we're not hearing reverb because it's compressing it. And now we can have a lower release. So this is used a lot in like vocal mixing to add clarity while having a lot of space. So while I'm speaking, you only hear my speaking. And the moment I stop, you start hearing the reverb come in. And also it's used a lot in like gating. For example, if you have like a very like these huge EDM snares, they also use this a lot, where it's like in your face, all the transient is right there, and then it's all the tail. And they get this with like fine-tuning sidechain reverb. So this effect I think you hear so often. I mean, now we have the decay also like huge, so. But this is also not part of what we want. Without it, it would be your usual snare, reverb and snare. But this is how you could do this. Another more experimental way you can use this is that you can have this map to. So now you see here we're not getting any audio, so you can get something like an envelope follower. Envelope follower and put it here. And then, so maybe let's have a lot of reverb for a second. And then your envelope follower is gonna start reacting. And then let's say I want to map this to, I don't know, to the size of it. But make it minus actually. Yeah, I mean, this is probably the worst way to do it, but just like the option of you can take any signal out of anywhere and yeah, so you can take basically the loudness of whatever you want and then modulate with it whatever other things that you want. And also this you can use to like, let's say I have this after the reverb, I don't want it to take it from, this is you can also use a lot, this I use so much, is that now we started in the like compound racks. So on my envelope follower, I create another rack, and then I create a chain so that the audio can pass through dry, basically. And this envelope follower, I can turn it off. It will still receive the audio and get the information and get the automation volume, but it wouldn't produce any sound. And what I can do is I can add a filter now, and I can say that I only want this envelope follower to react only when there's extremely high frequency. Even though now I'm not changing anything about the sound, I'm just changing what is being picked up by my envelope follower and how this is working. You can have another chain of the same thing, but say I only want the lower frequencies. So whenever there is low frequencies coming, this thing is going to react. And then this thing I can map to something else, like, I don't know, the rate of the spin or whatever. I don't know why I used reverb for this. This is like the most boring thing ever. Okay. It's like you can barely see any effects. Yeah, but this is how sidechaining inside of Racks work. I can show you something here that I really like to experiment with. This is Ijiko Alba, a very nice singer. I just take like whatever sound I like. I think I showed this last semester. And what I try to do is I'm only allowed to use this track. And I have to, in an effect track, create different sounds that I want to create that would fit with this. So for example, my first chain is a very simple reverb, just to add more depth and pitch an octave down. The second one is a 5-tone equal temperament chord. It's also like another rack that shifts 5 different times. So 240 cents each time, so you have 5 tones. Just to create some like microtonal cloud in the background. The next one is kind of interesting. It's just wave sounds. So there's like, her voice is going through an echo, through a reverb, and then through a different effect, different tones of vocoders that noise the sound. And then all of these kind of have this like volume modulation that, I mean, I don't think they sound that good actually. It's supposed to be something like waves. It's also very nice like to challenge yourself to turn some sound into some completely different sound. Some other like noise stuff. Also vocoders, a lot of vocoders. Bloop bloop, I don't know what's this. Some delays, also some vocoders. It's like kind of whatever actually. And then all together, you'd like try to mix between them that they sound like something decent. If I turn the original, it's also. But it's a nice like challenge to like even start maybe with the snare drum, and then just with like a chains of delays and effects and everything, try to like say, okay, I want to make a chord progression in an effect track. I mean, it's kind of useless, but it's not really. It's like it's actually very fun to like try to create. Let me see, how could I create an effect? I don't know, like chords out of a snare or whatever. Actually, I just found one very recently by also very, very nice producer called Jabeux or something. And it's called Jappiator or something. Maybe we can try it here. And what he does is actually a very simple concept, but very, very smart. Is that he just adds a lot of delays. And these delays are all like, have auto shifter on them. So like auto tune. And you see like how complex this gets. And then another delay, and then another delay, etc. And basically what you can do is now you can, let's maybe turn this off. You can have an arpeggiator from your microphone, like it's basically, and then here he just changes basically what. It's very nice to like sing one tone into it. So it's like a very simple idea, but if you would think, how would I do an arpeggiator from audio, you would think that I would need a plugin for it. But actually, if like with very smart delay and pitch shifting, you can just create it in an audio effect track. And very it has also feedback. Let's see how that works. I was just freeze. I actually still haven't played with this one. Is there a time? Oh, no freeze play. It's very funny. Anyways, but also it's very nice to like look at these people that give this stuff out for free and then just look on how they created this stuff, because you can really learn a lot about this, like about the workflow and about how to use it, etc. Very nice trick you can do with LFO about like mixing the chains here is that you can, for example, let's say I want that whenever this noise thing is up, I want the other one to be down. What you would do is that you would map it, an LFO to both of them. No, this is not it, this one. And then you would just set the values to be the opposite. So whenever one is going higher, the other one has to go lower, and then the other way around. Just like we did in the mappings, basically. And you can maybe set it to random or whatever, and then you will have like random modulations in there.